Hello, my name is Daniel Derrick.
Hi, and I'm Steve Zebrowski.
And welcome to the UX Chaps podcast. This week we are talking about bad UX design fails. And if you do want to get involved within the next one what we do, then you can via the UX Chaps email address, and that is uxchaps@wearestage1.com. So let's get straight into this week's podcast, which I think is one of the biggest UX fails here that we have in front of us, is the push door with a pull handle.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I've seen this a lot. I've seen you go into restaurants or public places, I find a lot of doors. They've got push, a sign that says push on the door, and you've got a handle. So you instinctively go and pull the handles, but you're supposed to push it.
Yeah. And I think what happens here is that often they know that this is an issue, and then they put the sign on the door. But even with the sign that says push, people will still pull because it's a handle. So it doesn't even do anything to it. Like, people will not read the word push; they'll just instantly pull because they see a handle. So I think you see it everywhere. Even I think the biggest ones are in like coffee shops where people are trying to get in to grab their morning coffee. They're not really reading. They're sort of running around. They're just thinking coffee in the mind, and it says push, and they just pull it, and then you end up with a bent door and whatever.
I think I've seen some YouTube clips where like you got people and they just basically walk into the door. They go to pull it and
straight into it.
And it's like. Yeah,
and I've seen in places before where someone's actually gone to pull the door, and the whole glass is just shattered in front of them.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I have experienced a glass door shatter behind me from a place where I used to work, it was a bit shocking. Nothing to do with UX. It's more of like it sounded like somebody trying to snipe me out.
Right.
And that was a joke around the department. I was sat there minding my own business, and it sounded like somebody fired a shot. And the door behind me shattered, and everybody sort of just stared. I turned round and thought, "What the hell's going on?" kind of thing. And then it was like, "Oh yeah,
glass is broke.
Someone's trying to kill you, Steve." And it's like, "Yeah, it doesn't surprise me."
Yep. And the simple option to solve this issue is just don't have a handle on a push door. It needs to be a flat panel. If it's pull from the other side, which I'm guessing in this type of door, it will be probably a pull from the other side and a push, unless it's a double swing-in door. Simple. Put a nice flat panel on there. No problem whatsoever. No issue.
Yeah.
No UX issue whatsoever on that one. Okay. All right. Let's move straight into the next one. So this one is a big popular one, which is the dreaded drop-down list with 100 different locations, and you have to scroll for absolute days just to find your location.
And you can sometimes, I've seen people use drop-down lists for dates, which you shouldn't do. I mean, like if you're as old as me, then you're going to have to do a lot of scrolling.
Yeah.
To get to your year. And yesterday, actually, I saw an example where, it went back to 1890 something, I think, and I'm pretty sure there won't be anybody alive born in 1894 using the website.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's probably one of the most frustrating issues for users is having that whole drop-down menu. They have to scroll for days and days. And especially in some cases where, like, for instance, in this one, it's in alphabetical order, but United Kingdom sometimes isn't in alphabetical order and is in a completely different location, which makes it even more confusing for the user to try and find where they are.
Yeah, I think they should be able to type and it'd be predictive.
Yeah.
Predictive input. If you're going to have a drop down. You should have the most common ones at the top, and then maybe they're segmented, and then you've got the other list. But at the same time, you should still be able to type.
Yeah.
And then it will just jump. Or if you start if you start typing, it should just jump to it. But not the best use of using a drop-down list.
And I think
really,
either
it's not very good for.
Carry on. What were you saying then?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not also using drop-down lists for touch screens. That's it's a nightmare. I mean, like if you're on your phone and you have to scroll, it's not good.
Yeah, and I think there's two solutions here. Either have that auto suggest where you start typing and it populates all of the correct locations or whatever the drop-down is for, or just simply having a free-form text field if that works for you. Is often quite much more easier than having a really long list like this with every single location. Yeah. And also from a actual sort of technology side of things, you might miss a location. I think that's the biggest thing. If they don't list every single location, what happens when the user is from a location that isn't from that drop-down list? Now, I think this looks like an e-commerce website, so they probably they only have certain locations that they may ship to, which works fine. But in a scenario, if you're like a sign-up form and you need to put the user needs to input where they're from, and you just simply forgot about that location, because there is sometimes that there's some issues. What happens then? Do they have to put other, or if there's no other option, then what do they do? At that point you're sort of stopping the user from continuing that sign-up process. So so they're not good, and I think anyone that does use them, definitely consider changing that as an option on your website. Right, into the next one. So as you can probably see now, we're switching between online and offline. And this is actually an elevator from America. I don't think we even have buildings with that many floors here in the UK. But just looking at this is the most confusing elevator button thing. There's actual sort of multiple numbers. You got, say here 38 and then 38. Well, which one do you press? Is that even a button? I don't even know.
Yeah, I can't tell. I'm guessing. I don't know. I can't tell.
I mean, if you just take from the bottom, we go from L, then we go to M, then we go 3, 4. What does M and L stand for? No idea, unless it says that on the right-hand side in the little text box. And then they're not even in an order. So if you want to go, do they even have a level 2?
Yeah, I don't know why they. I mean, I guess it's kind of designed from an electronic perspective. What's the easiest and to wire up and everything, but they don't consider wiring is for one person. So there is UX behind the scenes. So the UX of wiring up certain buttons. So I've done UX on climate control systems, and you may have you get controllers. Say you go into a meeting room and you've got a little controller by the door, and you can open, close blinds, turn the fan on, increase it, decrease it, increase the temperature, reduce the temperature, so on and so forth. And then there may be some settings, so it's setting 1 to 6, and they may have names. So presentation settings, so you may dim all the lights to say 10%, and keep front 2 lights on at 100%, for example, and close the blinds. But then, how does that controller know what the settings should be? So you have a control system within the roof, within the ceiling, and then you set program settings to the controller in the ceiling, and then that tells what program 1 should be. So there is UX behind the scenes of actually building these things. But having said that, 99.9999% of user cases will be the people going in and out of lifts.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I guess it needs to be a bit of both worlds, really. There's going to be some sort of UX for the engineers behind the scenes so that they know what they need to do, but also the UX from the front end in terms of just finding out what floor you need to. And I guess if you use this lift every single day, you probably just get used to it. There's probably only certain floors or levels that you need to go to. But as a new person coming into this lift,
you're going for a job interview and you think, you need to go to, we're on floor 28. And it's like, okay, which button do I press? Wait a minute, next to 28 it's blank, but I've got a 28, I'll press that. And then it's like, I press 28. Is that a button? That's not a button. I don't know. I mean, you can end up going up and down.
I think actually now looking a little bit closer at this image, the actual number in the big one on the on the left of the button is
probably
actually
not
for
a button.
No, I think it's like Braille. I think for for people that are blind. So I mean that I guess is a hack job for making this accessible for different types of users, rather than having the physical button itself being accessible.
Because you could put the braille on the numbers.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it's to a normal user, this is absolutely confusing, and how on earth this gets used every single day is just crazy. I mean, we've got numbers going in all directions in order. They go across. In fact, they go from 10, 11, 12, 13. I mean, actually, they if you take a look, they're going up until we get to level 5, and then they're going across 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, so then they're going up, then they're going across like this, all the way up to, and then they sort of 29, 30. Yeah. So even the order is a bit strange there.
And there's some floors missing as well, 6 to 9.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they're not open to, that lift doesn't stop on those floors.
No. Or maybe there's secret door floors that only the ghost and the ghoulies are allowed to go to.
That's it. It's like the Illuminati's level, isn't it?
Exactly. All right, let's move straight on to the next one. And I'm not sure how old this screenshot is. I found it online, but we can talk about the actual reasoning behind this. And I think it's pretty bad UX when you're going through any e-commerce website and they start throwing extra paid services without you knowing. So in this scenario here, we've got Ryanair. They're bundling in travel insurance, which I guess will be a paid feature as well. But rather than disabling it as default, which you can see it says a "Don't Insure Me" button, I guess they're just kind of assuming it's going to be added to the basket. And if you don't want it, you have to then scroll all the way down and click the "Don't Insure Me" button from the drop-down menu.
This sort of reminds me of a dark pattern where, like, they say, "Hey, look, you can do go on a flight, go from location A to B for only £29." But then it's like, oh yeah, but that's not true. It's £29. But then you have to add insurance and add this, add that, then add tax on top of that, and that £29 becomes £156. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a bit like that. Yeah, I guess it's to entice you to get through to the checkout and then add extra costs onto the end. But I guess making the user select "Don't Insure Me," it should be a standard. They shouldn't have it in the basket. It can be there. I think it's fine to have it there in the basket and say, "Would you like extra travel insurance?" But just to assume that they're going to have it as default, is quite dark UX patterns.
They should let the users pick it. I mean, yeah, it's the user knows what they want. If they want to pay for extra insurance, then let them choose it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a thing that happens quite a lot in the UX space, but especially with the e-commerce websites. Normally, you find that this is a bit of UX that's probably been put in from someone higher up in the business, directors, project managers, because they want to sell maybe their travel insurance side of things. Quite often this is not passed through a UX designer, or it could be passed through a UX designer, but it's kind of been forced through. But if your company's ever thinking about doing this sort of dark UX, then we highly advise not to do it. It just really annoys your user base, and they'll probably end up going somewhere else.
It would be interesting to see how many people get to this point and then think, this is confusing me, or like you're saying I have to have this, but I don't want that. And then they said, oh, well, sod this, then I'm going to go somewhere else. And then
Exactly.
you lose a customer, and then you lose trust, because then, next time they want to go on a holiday, they see you coming up, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I had problems with their website last time, and you could fix it. But they don't know that, because they're thinking, well, I had a bad experience with you. Right, well, if I've had a bad experience with you, then they're not going to come back until they've seen evidence that that looks good. But how do you sell to them once you've basically alienated them?
Exactly.
So actually, bad UX can stop people from coming to you potentially permanently.
Yeah. And I would kind of hope, because it looks like an older screenshot here, that Ryanair has fixed these types of dark UX patterns. Although, based on more recent experience working with sort of these types of airlines, especially the cheaper and more budget airlines, these sort of patterns do kind of still do exist. So just as a user, I guess, watch out for them. And as a business owner, it's not great to be doing this stuff, even though it may or may not increase your travel insurance sales. So yeah. Okay, straight into the next one. And this one is a massive one.
Mm-hmm.
Is the whole Apple Magic Mouse charging. Now, I don't know why Apple ever, and whoever designed this, ever thought about putting a charging port on the bottom of a mouse, when they know that their consumers are going to be using this day in, day out, so they don't really have time to wait to charge up their mouse. Now, I think, if I remember, the original argument when this came out was that you can charge your mouse within 15 minutes, so you can go and pretty much go and grab a coffee or something, come back, and your mouse will be charged. But in theory, it doesn't. It takes probably about an hour to charge that thing up.
And if you're in and out of meetings, or you've got deadlines, I haven't got 15 minutes to wait, I've got to do this because I need to send it off by a certain time. Well, I've got to charge my mouse. All right, has anybody else got a spare mouse while this one charges?
Yeah.
It'd be equivalent of you trying to plug in or fill up your car underneath the car.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think in the first version of the app, of the mouse, they had 2 AA batteries, which is a little bit more convenient because you can pop them in, pop them out. And there was like a third party where you could have like a rechargeable battery that sort of pops in at the bottom as well. Yeah. So in fact, I think in my eyes, the first Magic Mouse was better than this one. But yeah, I think this is a real lack of. This is either a last minute decision to throw that in there, or I mean, I can't even think of why anyone would stick it where it is, unless it was a technical issue.
It could be a pricing issue, so they've decided to go for something cheaper from a technical standpoint, but by going for something cheaper, it meant, right, well, we can only have like the charging port at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, I mean, it's going to save like £1 million or whatever a year. Let's do that. And it's like, yeah, that's just going to really piss people off.
Yeah, and I think probably with a product like Apple is that they don't really care at this point. They're worth £1 trillion, £1 trillion business. They've got to the point where they're like, meh, we'll throw it at the bottom. People will moan, but who cares? They'll buy it anyway. And I guess that has happened. Yeah.
It's almost a bad thing. It's like you see it happen with companies. They build something, they do something really good, and then they get lazy and kind of like think, right, we've got our market share, we're doing really well, we've got our audience, they love us, we can smack them in the face and they'll still come back for more, sort of thing. And I think Apple's doing that now. I mean, they've only just launched a phone with 5G, which, well, so has everybody else, and they did that a while back, kind of thing. And and I think since Steve Jobs left, Apple hasn't come up with any decent designs. They've kind of like plateaued.
Yeah.
In fact, the iPhone 12 now, I mean, going a bit off topic, but the iPhone 12 now looks like an iPhone 4.
Yeah, and I think the main reason for that is just that, as much as, we can compare where Apple have come, and in the early days, they had quite a lot of innovation. But in terms of the mobile phone market today, it's quite dead because there's not really much new technology that you can bring into a smartphone. It's very limited. I think in my eyes, the autonomous cars and what Tesla's doing in that space is probably more innovative than what smartphones have done in the last sort of 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, all you can do is basically get better cameras and faster processors.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you've got a screen, you need to have a physical device. It's a mobile phone is actually a design flaw because you need to see something, but you need something really small to fit in your pocket or handbag or whatever. Small enough to, and this is like back in 20 years ago when mobile phones started to get really, really small. And then they started adding colour screens, and then they realised, hang on, you need a bigger screen because the screens are so freaking tiny, you can't actually read them.
Yep.
So, okay, well, we need to have bigger phones then, and then now we've got phablets, if you like, or half phones, half tablets kind of thing. And then now almost like too big to be a phone. But then it's like, well, if you want to watch a film or play a game or something like that, then it makes sense to have a big screen. So if you can get what you want is something that doesn't have a physical screen, and then you can have a bracelet, and maybe then that screen can be projected somehow. Maybe you can wear glasses, and you've got a bracelet, you just wear your glasses, and you can have something which just goes across your glasses.
Yeah.
And it can project on your glasses, and then you've got VR.
I mean, Google Glass did that. I think when they launched that, they were just too early to the game. I think if Google Glass comes back in sort of 10 years' time, I think they'd probably be more ready in the marketplace for that sort of technology.
I think it's almost like you don't want to design a pair of glasses. You want to design something that fits on any pair of glasses. Because what if you need to wear lenses, or sunglasses, you're outside and sunny. We do have sun in the UK occasionally. But then there'd be times like, I need reading glasses. Mm-hmm. So, if I'm having to shop and change, why not just look, I've got glasses. If I can have something which is go across the glasses and turn these glasses into smart glasses, and maybe I have a bracelet, like your phone, or maybe your, not phone, watch.
Yeah.
Maybe it is your watch and your watch becomes your phone now. But then you can use your glasses as a screen.
Yeah.
Any glasses, and that way you use less physical material, which is better for the environment, and you just concentrate on, right, I want an experience playing a game. I want the game to be as realistic as possible, so you're sat on a train or whatever.
Yeah, well, there is a Black Mirror series where they put a little chip at the side of their head and go off into a whole different world. So yeah, who knows, we might get there in the future. But I guess we don't know at this point in time.
These are all ideas which people can come up with these ideas, and then if they can find a solution to them, they can become reality.
Exactly. Right, let's move straight into our next one, and this one is the whole creating a new password, and they ask you to basically meet about 100 different requirements to create that new password. Now, the worst part of it is even if you try and follow along with the uppercase, the lowercase, the number, the special characters, it doesn't tell you which one you've actually ticked and which one you haven't done. So at this point in time, you're like, well, I thought I met all the criteria. You're telling me no. Well, which one is it? What do I need to add? A special character, a number, or maybe something else? Should not contain any personal information. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But there's nothing here to indicate which one you breached. Yeah,
I think a lot more. I mean, I'm seeing less and less of this kind of pattern, and I'm seeing a lot more where you've got certain criteria: must have a minimum of X characters, must contain uppercase, must contain lowercase, must contain special characters in brackets, what those characters are, and must contain numbers. And then you can see them as you do it. As you do each one, then you get a tick next to it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that solves this problem that we've got here. What it doesn't solve then is you've now got this really long password that
you can't remember.
And then maybe you can remember it, but you use that same password everywhere else, then it becomes very insecure. Even I use like online password saving tools, but even them, are they that secure? Yeah. Who knows? If someone breached into my master password, they'd probably get into everything. So yeah, I mean, what they do tell you in security places is to come up with your own sort of password generation key, whether it's a letter, then a number, or whatever, something that you can remember, but only you can remember it, so that you can run through that every single time. You're still going to get caught into that whole, what password did I use for this website? I mean, it's one, it's a challenge.
One thing you can do, I can't remember where I picked this up, but somebody mentioned, instead of thinking of writing a password, write a phrase, but it means something to you. Because often they say it has to be a minimum 12 characters or 16 characters, and it must have like numbers in it, and you must have uppercase and lowercase. So you can write a phrase, and a lot of people will think, well, when to enter a password, it's like, oh, I've got to type in a password.
Yeah.
If you entered a phrase, it's not as guessable, and so it adds security. And then you can just like add, maybe it's like my second dog's birthday was, and you can enter the numbers of the date, and
Yeah, I guess that still then gets into that realm of what phrase did I use for this website. If you signed up to say 50 different websites, what phrases did you use for which one? And I think that's the issue. I think there's UX techniques that you can use that make it easier for the user, but we're still at a point in time where passwords are just a bit dated. There isn't really much.
We need to get rid of them.
Yeah, there's not much we can do from a UX side. There's only certain security stuff we can do until we get to that point where there's new technology that comes in. I mean, it's a challenge.
I think a lot of places now you can use your phone, and there's like two-step authentication. I can't even speak, but the whole concept of password is a bad UX anyway. There's no good UX because you're forced to often remember something you're not going to remember. So it's like, well, it defeats the object around the password then, because if I can't remember, I'm going to have to write it down, which is a security risk. So might as well not have a password.
Yeah, and even the two-step is really annoying for users because quite often you're on the computer or you're on the phone, and then it's like, go get your app or go get your phone. We've sent you a text message, and it's like, well, my phone's downstairs, or my phone's not here with me right now, or my phone has maybe run out of battery. Then you're in this whole, what do I do? Even when it says, okay, we'll send it to your email address. Okay, well, now I've got to go log into my email account. I've got to go and find the email. It's quite often the tasks where the two steps are in. Say, for instance, a good one for me is PayPal, where you just want to quickly go in, check something, and be out. You don't want this whole faffing around with passwords and codes and clicking links. You just want to get in there and out as quick as you can. The only issue with that, the less security you have, the more you're open to attacks, and especially with PayPal, there's quite a lot of security attacks that happen with that side of things. So yeah, I mean, there's stuff that you can do that improves the UX, but having what we've got here on the screen with no idea of what has passed the validation checks and what hasn't, isn't very good for your users. So always put that little check mark next to what they have completed and what they haven't, so they can go in. I think probably then the other thing is, like, you can't even see your password here.
I was just about to say, It's like, if you're trying to write something, and you think, oh, did I do that uppercase? If I'm writing, like, I've got 4 uppercases in this password, and it's like, wait a minute, did I do that one uppercase or the one next to it? I can't remember. Because you get into you're already, like, by the second time, when you re-enter the password, you've forgotten it because you're forced to write something which you're not going to remember.
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah, and I guess another one that you can do, I'd always recommend doing it, is where you have to re-enter the new password and then re-enter it again, is disable copying and pasting, because your users will just copy and paste. Which if they're doing that, there's no point in having that second enter your new password in. You then find a little bit later on down the line, you're getting more customer service requests because people have forgotten their password or they've entered it incorrectly, and it just becomes a whole nightmare. So if you do have to, if you are making your users re-enter that password again, just disable copying and pasting within that form so they have to actually do it.
It's the same with the email. You see sometimes you can have 2 emails and you confirm email. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah. I mean,
you can copy and paste. I mean, I think only once have I found a place where like you can't copy and paste your email, but all the other ones you can. So it's like, well, then there's no point confirming it.
And I've done that before, and I've spelt in the first box my email address incorrect, copied and pasted it, and not realised. Signed up for an account, gone down the route of creating the account, the profile, and everything else, then find my emails is incorrect. So when I've come in to log into it next time, it's like, your email is incorrect. I'm like, no. So go to reset the password. We cannot find your email address. It's like, what did I use? Then you have to go and contact customer support, and then they're like, yeah, you spelled your email address wrong. And it's like, that was because I was trying to save time. I clicked copy and paste. I spelled it wrong. So just by, even by doing that, you're saving your as much as users could get a little bit frustrated that you've disabled that option, you're actually saving them time and energy down the line if they have that scenario that I've just explained.
You can have like a validation, and you can have either potentially you can have a phone validation. You enter your email or your phone number, and you can choose, or maybe have both if you wanted both, depending on the scenario. And then you click on send validation, so you only need to write it once, and then you get a validation. If you don't get something coming, it should say like we have now sent you a validation. You should get that within the next minute. If you haven't, resend it or change or check your email or phone number. Make sure you've typed it incorrectly. So it's forcing the user. You can't go forward without validating what you've entered.
Yeah. And that does work in a majority of scenarios. There, especially like, I guess one that I've experienced being more rural and not having any mobile signal is they'll send you that verification code via your text message. I don't have any signal in my house, so I'm sat at the computer going, right, now what do I do? And some of them
I'm gonna have to drive down the road.
Yeah, I have to like run down the street like with my hand in the air, going, "Where's my code?" To then find the code's expired, and then I've got to try and do that all over again. Some software, some services allow you to send it via an email. I always try and opt in for that one if I can. But text messaging can be a bit iffy if they've got bad signal, or maybe your customers might not even be allowed their phone on them when they're trying to do that action.
Location. Yeah.
So I guess this is kind of where the user research piece comes in, to understand your users, your target audience, their limitations, what they can and can't do. Especially when you start going into, say, more restricted areas, like high security places, if you start working with Ministry of Defence, there's quite a lot of those restrictions always in place. So understanding your users and understanding their limitations when they're using the software is always crucial for that. Okay, let's move straight into the next one. This one will probably be a physical one. This one, I've seen this so many times. This is probably not related to UX, but probably more related to around the sort of graphics design area, is using social media icons in a printed document or an article or a newspaper. Like, they have no effect whatsoever here. It says, at this point, you're just promoting Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. It doesn't tell people.
I can't tap on them.
You can't tap on them.
I can't share on Facebook or whatever.
It does say that you're on. I guess it says the big carrot is on all of these social networking sites. But I guess that's the only thing. At this point, you could have put in a QR code. Probably the most easiest is a QR code that someone could use their phone to scan into straight into the social media app. But other than saying we are on these social media websites, The big carrot as well is very, I guess that's a very generic name. You probably have hundreds of different pages come up on Facebook with the word carrot in the title. So this one's...
I'm sure in some cases you might start typing things. I'm sure in some cases you might start typing things and end up getting things that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, maybe if you put big carrot into Google, maybe that might come up with some interesting
Don't do
things.
that, just in case, people are going to do it. If I say don't do it, people do it.
Yeah, of course.
Don't press the big red button. Why? You pressed it.
So this is a kind of another one, thinking about your audience. This is going into a printed magazine. What does this actually mean? Could we put QR codes in here? Could we put someone else in there? Can we use technology to our advantage here, really? And I'm pretty sure if they did put a QR code in this magazine, and I don't know what type of magazine this one is, but they would probably have more people come across, check out their profiles by doing that. Or it makes it more interesting.
You could do like different offers by putting a QR code on each. So like if you've got a number, like in this example, you've got 3 glasses, and you probably put an image of a QR code on at least 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And you can say, look, you can get, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, this QR code, you can get a 10% discount on your next drink for this type of drink.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just, I guess that's putting more of a digital marketing spin on your advert. And I guess it also then allows you to understand if that magazine advert has actually had any effect on your brand. Because that's the good thing about digital marketing and online, is that you can see who is actually visiting. You've got views. With an article like this, you don't know whether that's been effective or not, unless people are coming into your shop and saying, oh yeah, I saw you in so-and-so magazine. That's really the only feedback you're going to get with your brand. So yeah, trying to turn it into more of a digital marketing and use technology around that is always key.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's get straight into the next one, and validation fault. So there is, it doesn't, so what is this one actually? Validation fault, format does not match database. Entry invalid. Okay, so if you can see here in the email, they forgot to put the @ sign.
Right.
So this is where the front end is talking to the back end. It cannot find, I guess it's searching via an email at this point, and because it doesn't have the @ sign or the @ symbol, it's just giving the user an error that it doesn't match something in the database. It's not telling them what the issue is. It's just saying, nope, sorry, can't find you.
It's not user-friendly language, and it's not showing you where the error is and what the error is.
Exactly, yeah. So the email field should be highlighted in red, saying missing an @ symbol or wrong format, and the message at the top shouldn't really talk about the database. Who cares from a user? They don't care what the back end's doing. They don't really care if there's a validation fault. They just want to know, how can I solve this and how can I move on to the next step?
Yeah.
Nice and simple.
Yeah.
That's an easy one, really.
Yep.
Okay. Good old Tesla. And we bring it up every single time. Now, this one is...
Just like to point out, Dan's not really a Tesla fan, and he doesn't actually own a Tesla car.
Yeah. Well, unless you head over to the Tech YouTube channel, then you'll definitely see
a shameless plug.
I'll plug that one in there. And if you want to subscribe to that one, then do go ahead and do so. I threw this one in here because it's also a good and a bad UX design. Now, from the good side, in my opinion, is quite simple. Touchscreen, modern technology, works great. There isn't 1,000 buttons that you have to press. But on the bad side, that kind of what I've just said is also the same on the bad side. There isn't enough buttons. Everything is done through the touchscreen. And when you're trying to, a good example is turn the fog lights on. You have to go into the settings menu while you're driving, find out where the fog... you just try doing that on your mobile phone while you're driving. Not that you should be doing that. but that's the reason why mobile phones are banned. But they've kind of done, it's gone flip around the other way now. It's like, okay, well, let's just bring the mobile phone inside the car. But this time, try and make them turn on features that they need in a split second. But it's really complex to find.
Is it as bad as texting? I mean, texting in the UK is banned. If you're on your phone, using your phone while driving is illegal. But you could hypothetically text on your, not just on a Tesla, but if you've got a screen, let's say, like, for example, it's illegal to use your mobile phone and interact with it, even if you are using a sat-nav as on your phone. And most people will use a sat-nav on their phone unless they've got, like, a Google or whatever sat-nav on their car system. So, you could be trying to find something, fog lights, and you could cause an accident doing that on your screen. So,
yeah, no, I agree.
Is that, is that the same thing?
And in the UK, they've just come in with a new rule to say it doesn't matter what you're doing on your mobile phone, you now can get in trouble, whether that, before it was just texting and phoning, but now it is using your sat-nav, changing your music, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But now we're in this scenario where I don't need to use my mobile phone because all my mobile phone features are on my dash in the Tesla. Now,
so you are
is that the same?
You're in theory using your mobile phone, but on your dashboard.
But it isn't. So by law,
yeah,
I'm not doing anything incorrect and wrong. But we've still got this whole problem of
or whatever.
You're
finding music.
You're just moving. I'm still playing around, but it's the same with any car, really. Like changing the music in an older car or putting a cassette in or whatever it may be, a CD.
Yeah.
You're still taking your eye off the road.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think in the future, more and more cars. I mean, cars are starting to do this now. Use voice. And like, so you don't need to take your hands off the steering wheel. I mean, like, you're driving, so taking your hands off the steering wheel and looking at a screen, well, you're not looking at what's going on around you. You're not aware. Suddenly, you're not concentrating on what's going on around you. And it's like in the Ferrari, they have all the controls on your steering wheel. So, in theory, you don't ever take your hands off the steering wheel.
Yeah, which also is a pro and a con because there's so many buttons. It's which one do you press? It can be quite overwhelming for a new user who you stick in that car and they'll go, oh, how do I put the wipers on, or how do I do this? So yeah, I mean, car UX for cars we're in a weird place right now because it's how do you give the user the functionality that they need to do things quickly, but without overcomplicating the car.
Yeah.
And
less is more, as they say. So if you've got less controls, less buttons, and less things competing for your attention, then you can concentrate on what you need to concentrate and find what you need to find. I mean, like changing the control, changing your climate control. You're not concentrating on your driving anymore.
No.
But then you could say, well, if you're too hot or too cold, you're not concentrating as much as you could be. So it's like, where do you draw the line?
Yeah, and I think this is where voice is going to play probably the biggest part in, we spoke about this in the last podcast around voice and the usage that we see it's going to have in the future. But in car technology, I think it's going to have to go towards just voice because you can keep focusing on the road and you can talk to it, press a button, say one button, and maybe not even press a button, just say, like we said last time, hey Mercedes, all of a sudden it pings up and away you go. I guess for these types of cars, Tesla and Elon Musk, their vision is people won't be driving cars in the future anyway.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this middle thing. Probably won't have a steering wheel. It might just have the dash in the middle, which you could use anyway because you won't be driving. So that's slightly different. But I think until humans stop driving or people stop driving, we're gonna have to try and figure out what that middle ground is in the UX space.
I think continue as driving as the person who's driving, because like even if the car is automated, fully automated, there's still legislation we've got to get passed.
Mm-hmm.
And so until then, it's like, well, okay, the person is in control, even if the car is fully automated. If a car causes an accident, then you can get done, potentially for manslaughter, or you lose your driving license or whatever. And it's like, well, no, the car's level 5 automated, so I shouldn't need to.
Yeah.
I shouldn't lose my license.
I think my biggest question really to Tesla for stuff like this is, why have they decided to put some, like the indicator and the wipers on a stick on the side of the steering wheel, but things like fog lights or switching on your lights or any of that stuff, why is that hidden within the settings menu? It's an interesting
Maybe
one.
they should have the key controls on the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Lights on, off, horn. You don't need to adjust. You can maybe mute and change the volume of the radio, or
Mm-hmm.
The sat nav or something. It's like in the Ferrari, you got indicators, and they're on the steering wheel. You don't actually have stalks, and it's the same with like the windscreen wipers. In fact, next week I'll take a photograph of the Ferrari steering wheel, and we can although like Ferrari does have all the controls on the steering wheel, there are some UX flaws in that, and we can talk about that next week.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think some key controls should be on the steering wheel. You never need to look at another screen or anything. You can put signals on the steering wheel. You can put windscreen wipers on the steering wheel. You can put lights on the steering wheel.
Yep. And I think we should do a full podcast where we talk about car UX, because I think this is one of the biggest products out there right now. That new technology is coming in, and software is coming in more than physical buttons and dials. Maybe it'd be good to get someone who is in that space, who's been working in that space for a long time, to sort of maybe educate us and everybody else around where it's going and how they see it.
Yeah. I mean, I think a UX in a lot of people think, when they say UX, they think, oh right, you design websites or you do apps and things, and it's like, that's touching the surface. I mean, you got everything and anything that you interact with. There's UX.
Yeah.
And do you have a good, like that mouse you showed earlier? And it's like, well, I need to charge it up. Well, that means I can't use it, but I need to use it.
Exactly.
And
I guess the big difference between online stuff and car tech like this is there is a sort of a life and death threat towards people if you get majorly wrong.
It's a lot more of a serious thing. I think like things to do with like like cars, lorries. You're talking about mechanical and health as well. You've got health equipment, and it'd be great to look and play with some health equipment to get an understanding of how how potentially things could happen that could put people's lives at risk.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And this one is a popular one that I see pretty much everywhere, is the which one do I click? So are you sure you want to cancel this registration? Well, do I click the cancel button or do I click the OK button? What are you actually asking me? It's got double meaning, and to the user it can quite quickly frustrate them. If they click cancel, they just go back to whatever they're trying to cancel. If they click OK, then what does that mean? What does that do? Do they just cancel it?
It's almost like cancel registration, cancel. And it's like, you've got to read it twice. And it's like, I want to cancel the registration.
Yeah.
Why not just have cancel registration or close?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or just have cancel registration or have a little cross at the top.
Yeah, and these are types of things that UX probably would take into consideration, but also you might have a copywriter that is also looking at the wording of buttons and call to action. So, I mean, not many people talk about copywriters when they talk about UX. They just go, okay, we need a UX designer. But actually, in quite a lot of applications now, you do have that copywriter that is looking at the wording and the design of the words with the UX designers and the UI designers. So for this one, as Steve's just mentioned, it should say close and okay. Okay, nice and quick one that one was. Right, the next one, and I think this one's the final one that we have to talk about, is the you deleted this message. So this, anyone that uses WhatsApp, you will know if you delete a message, it comes up with this message that you deleted. Now, the whole purpose of deleting a message is that you don't want people to know you've deleted that message. Maybe you've made a massive spelling error. Maybe you've sent a text message to your true love, and you just don't want them to see them after a couple of beers on a Friday night.
You sent it to the wrong true love.
Your second true love. So the fact that it says you deleted this message kind of defeats the whole object of deleting the message. Yes, they can't see the message anymore, but now they've got the question of, well, what did it say and why did you delete it? But
that message that's a message saying you've deleted your message.
Yeah.
But do they see that you've deleted the message?
Yeah, everybody within the chat will see that you've deleted the message. So I think what it will say,
what's the point?
Is if it would say you deleted it, it would say Steve, to my side, it would say Steve deleted this message.
But what's the point of telling people you deleted a message? It's like, there's no point telling them. It's like, yeah, I sent a message. No, wait a minute, that's wrong. No, wrong chat or wrong. No, I typed something. Oh no, that doesn't make sense. Delete. There's no point telling everybody I've just deleted something. It's like saying, right, well, I'm just going to go to the toilet and I'm going to go and urinate, and I'll tell you whether it smelt nice or not. And it's like too much information. I really don't want to know. I apologise if that was too much information.
In my eyes, it's like when you're watching YouTubers online and they start their video with, "Oh, I've got a lot to tell you, but I can't tell you," and it's like, well, why have you mentioned it? If you can't tell me, don't mention it.
Yeah, exactly. It defeats the object.
And
it's a bit like you have edited this message. I mean, a lot of like Facebook and LinkedIn and stuff like that. Do you need to tell people you've edited it?
Mm-hmm. And I've actually,
I mean, I can see a potential on a minority of cases. Most of the time, it's because you made a spelling error or you copied the wrong thing or something like that, and you just want to change it. No one needs to know that. Mm-hmm. But then, like, you may have got some information wrong, and you want to let people know. But then people probably won't even notice that. Mm-hmm. And so you might as well write a new message or put as one of the replies, oh yeah, this information is now out of date. This is the correct one.
Yeah.
So then people see that.
Yeah, Facebook used to have a history on a comment as well. So if you edited it and then edited it again, it give you the history of all the changes. It makes you look like an idiot if you keep changing the spelling one by one. But what I have noticed recently that they've actually removed the word edited from their Facebook messages. If you comment on a post and then you edit that post, they've completely removed it because what does it really mean? So what? I guess the only thing from a UX side that I could probably think about that could be an issue is, say, I don't know, I've commented on a post, loads of people have liked it, and then I completely edit that post and change what it says. So maybe I put something nice, everybody clicks it, and then I've changed that nice comment into quite a negative comment. Now you've got all these people that have liked your negative comment. That's the only, negative use case that I could imagine is the reason why they probably thought about that in the first place, of putting it's been edited so people were aware.
I think also it's in case you've got a fact wrong or got some information wrong, you typed in the wrong number or wrong email address and you changed it, and then somebody's commented, oh, the phone number is wrong in on your post, and then it's like you edit it and say, right, I've updated it, and you can see, oh yeah, it's been edited, it's updated, it's different now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's almost like a feedback to say, yeah, it's been updated to the person who is reading the message rather than writing the message. But again, it's like, well, if somebody has highlighted you've made an error, then you probably write, okay, yes, I've updated it, because you're still having to tell them I've updated it. 99% of the time, so you might as well just reply to them.
And if someone's just editing spelling mistakes or we're quite easy to click that enter button these days and send our message off into the big wide world without proofreading, then in scenarios like that, it probably doesn't really matter that it says edited. So yeah. So that is... Oh, maybe not. I do have a couple more. There's a couple more hidden ones. I thought that was the last one. So, right, let's move on to the next one. And this one, normally you find on very spammy websites that are trying to get you to click adverts. And it's the download here or open. Now, it'll probably tell you to go through to the next stage and download your file. We find them on real dodgy websites. And it's which ones you click. Now, I think if you click the open, that will open an advert. And if you click the download here, that will download the file. But I think I've seen it flip around the other way before, where
I have.
It's just getting you to click those adverts and getting them open. So yeah, this is not a popular one.
I've seen variants of this, and like some of the wording is different, and it looks like get the file or get this now, and you click on it, and it's like, oh no, that's the advert, or oh right, and then it's the call to action is almost hidden. It's like, oh, I'll download this image or download this font, or whatever your or driver or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean that one's actually quite a clear example in comparison to some of the ones that are out there, and I'm sure people have seen. I've seen ones which, like, you've got about 12 buttons on there, and they all look like primary call to actions. Because another thing is like usage of color, and you think green is the one to use, or the brightest one is the one to use, or the biggest one is the one to use.
Yeah.
So and like wording as well has an influence. Yeah,
but I think this is more of a dark UX pattern because they want you to click those adverts because they make more money at the end of the day. That's the whole purpose of that. So with this one, they know what they're doing, and they're doing it on purpose.
They're doing it deliberately.
But if you do have a more of a legit website and you have something like this on your website, then you should remove it. It's not good for your users, and a lot of them will probably have ad blockers put on for these types of reasons, and users will find a way around it. So just don't do this one. It's not a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this one is the final one that we have, and it's call to actions on buttons, and this one's just one example. Initiate autonomous control sequence to users. What does that mean? It's quite complex.
It's not very good language.
No. It should just say, if this is to initiate something, maybe it's just start control sequence or start sequence or whatever the functionality.
Start whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Start engine.
Yeah. Maybe it just says start. So with buttons, quite often it's probably not advisable to have more than one word on a button. Normally have a one word and an icon with quite bold text or whatever it may be, but having something...
You could have two... I think you can have two words depending on what it is. Print file or whatever, for example. There may be print or downloads CSV or download Excel sort of thing, and you may have two versions and you need two core. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
But I think that could probably be replaced by one word, or worst case scenario, two words like start engine or whatever it is, or start downloading or.
Yeah, and I guess the other one is having buttons that just have an icon, and that's again not really something that you should do. It's always good to have what it actually does and then the icon. There might be scenarios where you have to have just the icon due to limitations of space, but where possible, always try and have the text next to the icon and make it simple for the user.
I think there's only a few icons you can get away with where you don't need words, and that's probably home button, close, print, save, things like that. But if it's something like
or universal icons.
Yeah. So, everyone knows that no matter what device they're
Mm-hmm.
on. It's like, well, home, well, we've known home since the internet came about, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. But then if it's something a bit more obscure, like controls, it's like controls. What does that mean? Is that settings
Mm-hmm.
and settings and preferences? It starts getting a bit confusing. It's like controls, settings, and preferences.
Yeah.
What does that even mean, kind of thing? So
and yeah, the more settings, especially if when you get into sort of programs that have multiple options and settings, it gets really confusing for the users to understand what does what. And over the years, I've seen some awful platforms where probably just a developer has been thrown in there. They've just kind of stuck in whatever they thought at the time was worthwhile, or made sense to them. And when you test it with the users, they don't know what, from just looking at the screen, they don't know what each button does and what they should be doing next. So yeah, try and make it as simple as possible with as little, well, I guess as little copy as possible, and just get to the point. I guess that's the purpose, really. Just get to the point, make the user do things as quick as possible.
Don't make me think.
Don't make me think.
That's a famous saying in UX in UX world.
Yep.
Don't make the user think. Make it so obvious. And certainly, like when they are using machinery, or if they're driving a car, if they have to think, all right, where's the fog lights? And it's like, well, I'll just go through this menu and all the rest of it. And about 12 seconds later, you've had an accident. Fog lights are not needed now.
Yeah.
999.
I mean, I don't even have any fog lights at this point. If you've had an accident, you don't have any.
Yeah.
You don't. Yeah, that's not that I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that Tesla doesn't.
No
have
longer
any.
needed. Do you need assistance? I'm dying. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
What kind of assistance would you like? Oh, for crying out loud, I'm bleeding out here.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that is coming to the end of this week's podcast, where we talk about bad UX design fails, both online and offline. We do have another one coming up in a couple of weeks where we look at good UX design, and the pros and the cons and all of that stuff on that side. But as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, if you do want to send in what you found online, your good and your bad UX design fails, and if you want us to talk about them in the podcast, then you can at uxchaps@wearestage1.com. That's uxchaps@wearestage1.com. And what we'll do is then we'll collate them all together and we'll include them in one of our podcasts. So that is pretty much the end of this podcast. It's actually now our fifth podcast, I think, that we've done.
Yeah, our fifth. So last week was our fourth.
Yeah.
So this podcast should be coming out next week.
Yeah, and I want to just give a big shout out to Craig, who also did watch the podcast as we spoke about him at the start of the last podcast. He's doing well. He's quite excited to be watching these podcasts and seeing us carry on with them. So yeah, maybe what we'll try and do is get him on at some point potentially to see what he's up to, and if he wants to. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Thank you for watching. Again, as I always mentioned, if next week or you want to watch the videos, they are all on YouTube. If you are watching this on YouTube and you just want to listen to the audio format, maybe you're in the car, maybe you're at home, wherever you may be, then you can. They're on Spotify and iTunes. And that's pretty much it for podcast number 5. So
okay, well, goodbye everybody, and see you next time.
Yes, thank you for watching, and see you next time.